Welcome everybody to episode 59 of UnHacked. You guys, we try to keep cybersecurity simple. Unfortunately, that sometimes feels like a losing battle, but here we are week after week talking to the business owners who already have enough on their plate, but we're just going to add a couple more things. I'm Justin Shelley, CEO of Phoenix IT Advisors, and joined as always by my good friends, Bryan and Mario. Bryan, say hi.
Hello.
Mario.
How are you?
Check in, say hi.
I'm Mario Zaki, CEO of Mastech IT, located in New Jersey. Sunny today, surprisingly. We work with small and medium-sized businesses, keeping them safe from, Justin's Russian hackers, but also other hackers as well. And we specialize in keeping business owners have the ability to sleep better at night.
You like to take on the whole world at once. Bryan, go ahead. Sorry.
Bryan Lachapelle, CEO of B4 Networks, based out of Niagara Falls, Niagara area, Ontario, Canada, and we help business owners get rid of the frustrations and headaches that come with dealing with technology.
All right, guys. And this week we've got somebody who's been around the block a little bit. We won't give away too much, but 37 years advising manufacturers. Tory, does that sound about right?
Yeah, it's at least 37.
At least. That's all we're admitting to.
Justin, I know you're going to try to attempt to pronounce his last name, right?
Bjorklund. Am I close?
Yeah, you got it. Bjorklund.
Yeah. You know how I knew? I asked AI. Because I didn't know. Tory, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where's the last name from?
Yeah, actually the last name is from Sweden. My grandfather immigrated. Well, his parents immigrated. He was 3 years old. Our family comes from the Dalarna region in Sweden, and I've never been. But I'm
never been to homeland, huh?
No.
Right,
born and bred in Arizona. I live in Minnesota now. I've been here since 1985.
Tell you what, when this episode gets 1 million downloads, we'll all take a trip over there to celebrate. How's that sound?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Deal. I'll start tracking. Tory, do you work primarily with manufacturing companies, or what industries do you work in?
Yeah, primarily manufacturing and distribution. We do work in a lot of other industries, and our process for transformation is industry agnostic. But when you start dealing with process improvement, which we do a lot of, process design and that sort of a thing, you obviously have to know the industry to be able to do that. And we focus primarily in manufacturing and distribution.
And you're working on a book called Digital Transformation Guidebook. Tell me a little bit about the book.
Yeah, it's directed to non-technical leadership of mid-market enterprise companies, and basically what they need to do to make sure that their digital transformation initiatives succeed. And as you guys all probably know, everybody has different statistics, but the low end is 70% failure. I recently read an article in IEEE magazine that claimed 95% digital transformation failure. And it all depends on how you define it. But I mean, if you're in baseball, 300 batting average isn't too bad. But if you're spending millions of dollars on some form of technical implementation, 300 is a really bad batting average.
And what would the other one be? 50? If you said 95% fail, that's only a 50 batting average.
Yeah, so you would have
real quick, while we're talking about definitions, so when you say digital transformation, what's a before and after picture of a digital transformation?
That's a really good question. So let's give a little definition of the words itself. I mean, as you think about basically what we're talking about is some form of transformative technology. And so basically, does it change the way you do business? Does it change the way your customers experience your business or your vendors experience your business or the way that you operate internally? Does it add something new to your business or do some form of significant change to your business? And basically, if the answer is yes, and it takes technology to accomplish that change, that's digital transformation.
So a little automation on the factory line, something like that?
Automation. I mean, automation on the factory line. It could be, and we had a customer that their products were sold primarily in retail stores, and they shipped to retail stores, and they decided that they needed to get online. This is, of course, was several years ago, but they needed to begin to go not just B2B, but also business to consumer and sell directly online. They put in, it's a whole new sales channel with their e-commerce. But it turns out that, there's a lot of options when you start thinking about e-commerce, for example. In fact, you wouldn't even have to put in an e-commerce system. You could sell entirely through Amazon if you wanted to, but there's a lot of options there. And that was a transformative to their business. And they wanted to maintain the same revenue in their B2B, but and then add 50% again in their B2C operations. So that was definitely transformational to the company.
Transformation.
You have to think about scaling and all the things like that to be able to produce that much, another 50% of goods.
No wonder all these things fail. That's a huge undertaking. Mario, I think I cut you off. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, well, actually, I was going to say is that, and Tory answered my question right away. Is it as simple as like adding an e-commerce where they can start operating online? But what now, Tory? Another question that I have is this. I'm assuming this is mostly for manufacturing companies that have been around for a while, old school type of companies, right? Because I'm assuming new players in town are probably already starting that way. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, well, if you're a startup, we'd love to do business with you as well and help you get started, but you're not transforming anything, right? Mm-hmm. You're starting something. So yeah, it's an existing company. We've got a client right now. They've been operating basically in business for 40 years. We're working with, they're just transitioning to it's a family-owned company, and their third generation now of the family is taking over the company, and they're changing everything. those dang millennials, man, they screw it all up. No, they're changing everything, and they're embracing technology, and they're absolutely transforming their company.
Okay,
I imagine you have to with what's AI and everything that's coming around now.
Okay, it's quick tangent. This is completely off track, but I heard or read or something, or maybe I made it up. I don't know. I hallucinated this. That the younger generation sees AI as something only old people use, like Facebook. Have you guys heard this?
What?
No,
is there truth to that? I don't know, because I asked one of my junior techs. I'm like, hey, have you brought AI into this? No. How often do you use AI? Honestly, not that much. I was like, what in the hell? It's old people technology. I don't know. I was really confused, and it kind of rocked my world.
What are they using? Just nothing? They're just sitting there doing nothing?
I don't know. They use Instagram, I guess. I don't know. Or Snapchat. Oh, no. What's that Chinese one? Yeah, exactly. What's that? TikTok. All right. Enough of the banter. Anyways, Tory, thank you for being here. 37 years working in this space, at least. That's what we're admitting to. You've got a book that's coming sometime in Q1, right? So you've got the editors are working away, plugging that into AI to clean it up. Oh, I mean, they're working hard on it themselves. Today, we want to talk a little bit about, we want to bring this, you work in transformation, but we want to work on security. So here's the thing, especially with old technology, a lot of times security is an afterthought at best, if at all. And then, let's be honest, when we build new technology, it's still the same thing. We're working on outcomes. We're not necessarily thinking about how to keep the bad guys out, Russian hackers or otherwise. So tell me some stories in your world. What do you find that's like scary? What do you find that's dangerous? Just give me one example that we can kind of kick this thing off with.
Well, I'll break the rules already. Let me give you two little examples. One I'll tell on myself, and one I'll tell on my customers. So let's start with my customers. Okay. Typical, let's say an ERP implementation. They're working really hard to make sure it's all configured to do the things they want it to do, and they've got it all tested out and they're ready to go. And then, like you say, security is an afterthought, and your statement of that triggered this in me. And what ends up happening is they start going through user acceptance testing, and they get users configured with their, all their roles and everything like that, and nothing is working. Well, why not? Everything worked earlier. Oh yeah, well, we were running in, sysadmin, and so what do? They go live with everybody having sysadmin rights, and figure they can fix it later. So
Yeah, but when
that's,
you try to fix it later, it breaks it. So you just put it
and
back.
you can't even imagine how many times I have seen that happen, and with significant implementations going on because they can't seem to get the role-based security correct in that system. The other thing, I'll tell stories on myself a little bit, is I've been involved in manufacturing and the co-founder of a capital equipment manufacturing, industrial equipment manufacturing company. And we made primarily case packers, primary and secondary case packers, palletizers, those sorts of things. And we would ship our products into, fairly large companies, and they needed support. And inevitably there would be some group that would receive our machinery and say, we don't want to deal with IT. They're just a bunch of a-holes, and they won't let us do what we want to do.
Hey, that's personal.
true.
We're going to get our own phone line or our own DSL, and then eventually it turned out to they started working with the wireless companies and getting their own connections to the machines directly, that we could just come in and bypass all their security, all their IT security, all their firewalls, everything, and we had direct connection to all the machinery in the factory, and with no controls over who's logging in, and it made for great support, right? Somebody would log a support ticket, somebody would get in touch with us. One of our technicians could just jump right on there, boom, they're right in. And it didn't matter if, we just hired that technician a week ago and he's a hotshot programmer, with the PLC or whatever. And so he's going to be able to figure it out and everything. But we have no idea, what else he's going to be doing in there. And then and then on top of that, what's happening is it's being done in production, right? There's no life cycle management where you make your changes, you do your testing, and you roll it out. Somebody's in there, modifying the PLC code, and then think it's going to fix the problem, and maybe it does, and maybe it doesn't, and then suddenly they've got bigger problems. So a lot of best practices that used to be broken over the years. I would say that today, a lot of that went away, and maybe we'll talk about this or not, but that was one of the benefits of Stuxnet. When that came out, people thought that their PLCs were safe and weren't on the network, and they really were. And all of a sudden, you realize they realized, holy cow, we got to take this stuff a lot more seriously than we did previously.
Yeah, we see that a lot in greenhouses. They have a lot of third-party tools, third-party applications, third-party components, and they're giving themselves access to that remotely with no thought or consideration to cybersecurity. So I'm curious, did anybody get hacked or breach in that case where you
not in my knowledge. I mean, the worst we did. I mean, we had some technicians that inadvertently took down systems that took a while to get back up and going again. But that's primarily because you're changing production code and restarting it rather than going through an actual life cycle that you should probably do for best practices.
Yeah. Well, how has your thinking around that changed since then?
Well, you really need to harden your operational networks, right? I mean, you just have to treat the industrial side of the world as important to protect as you do the back office, and that's the biggest thing. And what that means is a little bit different. I mean, for example, with industrial, with IoT and whatnot, you can actually have single direction routing and things like that. So, there's a lot of things you can do that can significantly harden your industrial network that you wouldn't necessarily do in an office environment, for example.
Tory, what do you do when you go into one of those facilities where they have like a Windows XP machine that's running like a software that's from like 1991 that they said we can't shut this down, we can't do anything about it?
Yeah.
I know I see that all the time. What do you usually do in those situations?
Yeah, and I don't know what it is about manufacturers that you see. I don't see that in any other environments, but yeah, you do see that quite a bit. And so basically, what we do, the first thing we do is we talk about, okay, this is not a technology issue. This is a risk management issue. So let's figure out what the risks are, what we're dealing with here. And I've literally had a situation just not that long ago where they had software that would only work on a certain version of the Windows networking and the Windows Server, and so they had an old version of Windows Server that they had to have running all the time, and it was no longer being supported. They couldn't patch it and that sort of a thing. And we actually did help them come up with a plan to be able to keep running that, but to segment that in such a way that it didn't have access from Outlook or something like that. I mean, they used to use it for people get on there and they're doing some operation and they check their email, things like that, and
Nice.
and so you really focus on a risk mitigation at that point and say, and what is this doing for you? Is it truly necessary? Those are the first questions. Are there other options?
That's one I want. Like, really, nobody else in the world can build a competing product.
Right.
And I'm genuinely asking that because I don't know.
Yeah. So my experience in seeing these are typically homegrown built systems.
Okay.
And that's what they're running in. Sometimes they're like an HMI or something that they're running that, the manufacturer for that piece of machinery has never, no longer in existence. That machine is the only, it's the only thing that's running that machine and those kinds of things. I mean, those are the kinds of things that you see. Typically, it's not going to be any kind of generic functionality that it's not going to be part of your SCADA system.
Well, this is a pretty technical question that maybe our general audience isn't going to give a shit about. I don't know, but could not, these days, couldn't you take that code and throw it into AI, reverse engineer it, and build something more modern and more secure? I mean, it seems like today we have a lot more options than we did 10, 20, 50 years ago when this code was originally built.
You would think so. There's a lot of risk to that. And, so the risk to return just might not be there. And so mitigating it, there are other options to mitigate that. I mean, you can basically segment that sucker off in a way that it does its thing and it doesn't have to actually be susceptible to some of the stuff.
Yeah. And I guess these days we've got VMs and stuff. So back, this takes me back to days when I was pounding the pavement and I came into a locksmith shop and they wanted to hire us, but they had the machine that cut all of their master keys. You've got the masters and then all the whatever. I'm not a locksmith. This isn't my world. But the software that ran their system only worked on Windows 95.
Yeah.
And you can't buy, I don't know, is Windows 95 even going to run on a computer today? I don't know that it does.
I doubt.
So this is what, like, I walked away.
You wouldn't have drivers for any of the components on the motherboard. Yeah.
I walked away from it. I'm just like, I don't know. You guys are so small. You're not going to pay me what it's going to cost for me to support this system.
Yeah.
I guess just hope and pray. I don't know.
No, but sometimes what we see is like they have a computer that's connected to like a big printer or like a plotter or something.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go get a new machine for, call it $10,000. But that machine, that computer needs to communicate with the other computers because it's acting as a print server. So it's not easy to isolate that computer or plotter, from the rest of the network.
Right. Yeah. And so at that point, basically you've got very few options, but one of the things is to make sure that computer isn't used for anything else. Yeah. So it can be accessed on the network, but it has to get whatever is going to access them has to get through everything else to get to it. What you don't want is somebody waiting for their print job and pulling up the browser and screwing around on Facebook or something on that computer. You know,
Yeah.
well, you know, so that's the thing is you want to make sure it's very single use, and you segment it as much as you can. But like you say, I mean, if you're sending print jobs to it, it's got to be on the network, and but you can do some risk mitigation there as well.
No Tor browsers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Don't put any Tor browsers on these old. Well, and you can segment like maybe subnet or VLAN or something, I guess.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yep, you can certainly do that. But it still makes, I mean, you can't eliminate it as being accessible or else you're not going to be able to utilize it, right? So if it's that type of a thing. But typically, if in those cases, that's when I would say, you know, you probably don't need this hardware solution and this software solution. There's probably other solutions that it's a little bit expensive, but imagine what kind of risk you're taking here in dollars and cents as well.
That's exactly right. I'm working on a future episode, and the lady was in charge of a company that got hit with a $10 million ransom. Now they negotiated down to $5 million. Great. I mean, we could have put in quite a bit of security, $5 million, and that's not even the tip of the iceberg of the real cost associated with a major breach, right? Like, there's so many things that go wrong. Now, Tory, have you ever been involved in a major breach, major outage of any sort?
No, I have not. I've never even had a virus on my own personal PC.
What the hell do you do different than the rest of us?
You're on the wrong websites.
Yeah, right.
I avoid porn.
Tory, squeaky clean. Yeah, like, listen, we got to kick you off. You're in the wrong group. We got the wrong guest on here. Guys, thank you for joining us on this week's episode. I'm just kidding. But
well, hold on. He said on his personal computer, so he must be using somebody else's computer.
There we go.
We got two of them.
So I have not been the one to get a virus even or something like that, but we have had viruses and relatively small contained breaches within the various companies that I've been in. Nothing really serious, no ransomware scenarios or anything like that I've been involved in.
And maybe
I've had clients that have been involved in those things.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about that. Clients that have been involved, lessons learned, things that should have been done beforehand, what was done afterwards. Let's just talk a little bit about that.
So, well, in one instance, it was actually relatively painless because they had a really good disaster recovery and continuity solution, and it was multimodal, if you will. They had local. They actually had local snapshots that they were taking periodically, as well as their daily backups that they were doing. They had a very clear understanding of what they could, what their acceptable downtimes were and for what functions and things like that. They'd done a really good assessment of their business, and they weren't a very large business, about a 50 million in revenue. So relatively small business, but they had a really good IT person and their director of IT, and she'd done a really good analysis, and they decided, their engineering, they needed they couldn't survive for more than a few hours with that down. And so they had a business continuity plan around their engineering. As far as the bean counting went, as far as their accounting and stuff like that, that was less important. And so the other thing that was really interesting was their actual change management for their engineering change management process. That's really what saved their bacon. They could go back to one rev, and that was through a system that was external. And so it wasn't compromised, even though their internal network was compromised. They could go back. Worst case, in a lot of cases, they were actually able to take the snapshots and utilize those because they caught the problem quickly as well. It didn't sit out there for days and then appear trying to. And it actually wasn't a ransom. They actually noticed it because it crashed one of their drives. But so it was very aggressive, and they just had to They basically shut everything off, assessed what was going on, determined where the problems were, determined whether or not it had been replicated, and at what snapshots. They went back to that. The ones that were affected in the current snapshots, they had engineers that had checked some stuff in. They were able to get those from those repositories, and then there was a matter of 2 or 3 hours worth of engineering time that was wasted. That was about it. That's the most successful one that I've seen. I have not been involved. I have a friend that was a CFO at a company that was one of our clients previously, but we weren't involved at the time recently. And they did have ransomware, and they did end up paying some money, but they got it down quite a bit from what was originally asked.
Yeah.
And but that I don't have a lot of details on that. He didn't share a lot with me. I play hockey with him, but he told me a little bit about it. And actually, I mean, he basically didn't sleep for 2 days, along with their IT group and whatnot.
So would I know a lot of breaches typically happen with office administrative staff, especially in manufacturing. Would a segmented network in that case have prevented the issue, or at least prevented the factory side or the manufacturing side from being shut down?
So on the ransomware one, I don't have enough details to know that, but I know that they aren't a manufacturer; they're a pure distributor. And I suspect that the better segmentation would have helped a lot, because they're very heavily dependent on their e-commerce system and then their back office system, and they lost both. So
Right.
that there's no reason you shouldn't have those segmented and firewalls
Right.
and whatnot. So
For the purpose of our audience, what does segmentation mean?
so segmentation basically means that you have, even though they might be connected as a single network, you get those segmented so that they're different addressing mechanisms between the different networks, and then you have to go through routers that you can then apply certain security parameters to, that allows only certain traffic to get across from one network to another network, and open up ports and things like that between them, and you can control then the traffic between these virtual networks, if you will, and network segments.
Let me so to illustrate that point, if I'm on a local segment and I'm a computer, I can just yell out at the entire network and say, "Hey, who's out there? What's your name? And what are you doing?" And every computer on the network will respond with and answer every question completely honestly.
Right.
Bad guy's dream, right?
Exactly.
So when you segment, you stop that broadcast to, it's only going to be a few computers that will respond. So you take some of these other computers, whether they're, dealing with high classified information, CUI in the world of CMMC or whatever, you stop those broadcasts from going from one network to the other. So that can be a huge way of preventing some of this stuff from spreading one network.
And one of the mechanisms that they use for spreading is they sniff, right? They go, it's looking for opportunities to spread, and so that segmentation can help stop that. And generally, what we have people do is segment the functionality of the different areas of the business, and so your operational technology, the things that are in the factory, that would be on one network. But then even within that, we use micro-segmentation to have certain packaging lines or certain machines or whatever within their own micro-segment within that OT network segment. And then you've got, the people in the back office that are doing all the crazy things that risk stuff in your and I'd say that jokingly, because machine operators do too, and everything like that on their lunch break. They're trying to check their Facebook and everything. But there's all of this kind of risky behavior going on in one area of your company. It doesn't have to spill over into the other area if you get some kind of virulent.
I want to go back to.
Sorry. Go ahead, Justin.
Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, one of the things that we found very successful for preventing employees from compromising the network with, for example, personal devices or surfing Facebook, is providing them with employee-only Wi-Fi that is only available to access the internet and not the internal network. So instead of them trying to, sneak around, we're giving them the opportunity to connect to a legitimate network, so they don't have the urge to use and try to bypass internal systems to connect to Facebook or whatever they're doing. So giving them that opportunity, giving them those options in a legit way to prevent them from compromising the rest of the network.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. And, I'm old enough to remember when bandwidth was an issue, even on your network. And so, when we had engineers that were running Spotify on their machines, that would create. So we had to put in place, some policies around that. And then that's when we realized, let's just put in a network for this. And it solves a lot of the bandwidth issues, but then by the way, it also solves a lot of issues with security.
Correct. Okay.
Spotify, you mean Pandora or Napster, right? Like
Napster,
back to the bandwidth days.
We had a guy that had that was I had a developer that we found was using his development machine, because Napster was peer to peer.
Yeah.
And so you had no idea who was dumping what on that hard drive.
Those were the days.
We found somebody not too long ago was actually mining Bitcoin on his work computer.
Oh God!
Yeah,
why not?
Somebody doing that to a server.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to Tory. You mentioned something that I've never seen in the wild. So everybody here, I think we're all out prospecting for new clients, right? We don't have to tattle on ourselves with our existing clients, but let's just talk about when we're out interviewing new prospective clients who have not been under our care. Has anybody ever seen a plan, call it business continuity, call it incident response plan, whatever, where they've gone through to the level that Tory just described about which systems could be down for which amount of time before it caused a financial hardship that was going to be difficult to overcome? Bryan, Mario, have you guys ever seen such a document?
When I visit our clients or our potential clients, we have never seen a document like that. And in fact, when we try to work with our existing clients to create such a document, we get a lot of pushback.
Get them in the room.
We don't have time. We don't have we don't have the resources to do something like this. And it just seems to be the last thing on their mind. And unfortunately, it could save their bacon in the future. Right?
Mario, what about you?
All the computers are critical. We can't have any of them.
Right. Until they see the bill. Then all of a sudden, none of them matter at all.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, I want to just tip my hat to that company, that individual, because like in all seriousness, I've never seen it. I've never seen it done to the level where when implemented, like it was there, it was legit. They followed it and it worked. That's phenomenal. And if guys, if we could all take one thing away, business owners who are listening, just take a few minutes to think through this and have a plan. Like, good Lord, it's not even technical. Just figure out, look at your business. You tell me, I'm the guy trying to help you. You tell me, what is it that you need to stay up and what's it worth to you? I mean,
if you ask the questions, basically, how much money do you lose per hour per functional area of your business?
Yeah.
And that's the question that we always started with. And this company, they didn't segment their networks and things like that, but they did think about it from a functional area of the business. And they said, hey, we're an engineering company. They're a manufacturing company, but they're a custom built, so engineer to order company. So they considered themselves an engineering company, and that's the heart and soul of the company. They can't lose that IP.
I did have one client, actually, now that it comes to mind. They didn't actually identify it from a documentation point of view, but they used to call one of their factory lines the cha-ching line, and their rule was that line can never be down. And they didn't actually they had internal IT. They didn't actually take the steps to secure that particular line independently from the rest of the network, which would have been a great segmentation to do if it was their main line. And if memory serves me right, it was $100,000 an hour of lost productivity if they lost that line.
So in your prospecting, what you really want to do is you want to get in good with the CFO, because the CFO knows the burden rate for every department in the company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all you do is you just say, hey, these are your numbers, not mine. Here's the burden
Right.
rate for this, right? And then say, okay, what you're saying is this is the cost for this area, right? And you say, okay, so X amount of dollars per hour that you lose. And a lot of times it's the cost. Some areas it's broken down by square foot. Sometimes it's by FTE. I mean, it's by, got to figure out exactly what they're using it. But then say, okay, here's your cost for being down. And now statistically, here's your chances of having this type of an event. And the average time to recovery is X amount. And on average, you lose, X amount of data, 4 days worth of work, whatever. So now do the calculation. And then,
But it's never happened before.
Right. It's not going to happen now.
Right.
This is
I've never been in a car crash, so why wear a seatbelt? All right. So, guys, I want to transition to data, AI and data. Before I do that, is there anything that we've missed? Mario, you've been a little quiet. Any thoughts, any questions in just the world of securing manufacturing, or really any industry? I mean, because this is just a common problem. Older, outdated equipment kind of is maybe an afterthought.
I mean, you have to kind of have, it's like what we said, you have to have a conversation with the IT people, and they're going to give you the recommendation. And I've done similar recommendation to some people where they have like a computer and they don't want to sit there and spend the money on a $10,000 plotter or whatever, and their compromise was, okay, we'll take it off the network, we'll just save whatever we need to on a USB and just bring it directly to the computer and plug it. I'm like, that works. Yeah, you can do that. There's other ways to do it very similarly, but at the end of the day, it's how much longer is it going to take your employees to do that? And sometimes you got to just spend the money, $10,000 for a new machine or a new plotter or new whatever. Even if it's 20,000, 50,000, it's going to be a lot cheaper than some of these ransoms that we're talking about.
Yeah, we're hitting millions. I mean,
sometimes you got to just bite the bullet.
Yeah. All right, let's switch gears, guys. Let's talk about data and AI. And Tory, I want you to introduce this topic. When we kind of did our pre-interview meeting, it was something I hadn't considered, but something that I think is really fascinating. Go ahead.
Well, so I had an experience recently where I work with a nonprofit. I do some volunteer work, and they have different divisions, each of which have their own P&L, and then they roll those all up. And if the roll up doesn't match the sum of the parts, you got issues. And they were in the middle of an audit and asked me to help them with that. And so I took all these 12 months worth of individual P&Ls and asked AI to evaluate them. And here's the roll up, the consolidated, and what's missing. Why is this out of balance and whatnot? And I thought it shouldn't be that hard to do. And I came away from that experience thinking AI is the smartest 2-year-old I've ever seen. It's extremely intelligent. And I know people, I've shared this before, and people go, well, what language model are you using and stuff like that? And it's like, the language really wasn't a problem. But number one, so these were all in Excel spreadsheets, right? So number one, it really had a hard time determining the difference between a column in the spreadsheet and a column in a table. And so that's one thing. The other thing is it had a hard time determining the difference between, I'm trying to remember the terms. They had, one was net revenue and one was net income. And well, to AI, there's a difference between revenue and income. And so you have to tell it, well, in this case, there isn't a difference between them. They're the same thing. And it wasn't like it couldn't get there, but I had to keep working it over and over and over and over again. And then because I was using I wasn't using the pro version. I think I was using Gemini. I'm trying to remember. No, it was Copilot. I was using what's just provided with whatever subscription we've got in the company. After so many prompts in one session, I'd run out of prompts and I'd have to start a new session.
Oh God.
Well, then I have to train it all over again. So I'm copying and pasting all the things I had to give it for prompts into one big prompt to start over again. Anyway, what it made me realize was what to me looked like standardized data. I mean, it had the same 12 months. It had, pretty much the same rows and stuff. And it's totaled at the bottom. It should have been a simple thing to do. If I wanted to go through and add it up, I wouldn't have been asking any of those questions that it was tripping over. And it made me realize just why AI has so much trouble with non-standardized data. And people always go, oh, it's the wrong language model and whatever, or you run it through AI. Well, I was running it through AI. It's just the work that I ended up having to go through to actually train it to be able to do this one relatively simple task was really quite amazing. And so the same thing is going to happen with people, put in IoT because it was a thing. And they've been collecting data now for, 8 years or whatever. And it's to a large degree rather meaningless. And then they expect AI to be able to help them do something with that. And it can, but it's really surprising to people how much work it's going to take to train that tool to actually use the data they currently have. Or you go the other direction and you prepare that data for use so that you don't have to train the model to be able to use the data. Either way is going to be a long and arduous process.
Yeah, we hear about that a lot in the industry. Basically, they're saying garbage in, garbage out. You put garbage into the AI model, you'll get garbage out. But if you massage the data and you clean it up and you standardize it, then you have a lot better chances in getting what you're looking for.
Right. Exactly. And, and particularly you're plugging in multiple types of machinery within, multiple factories or whatever. And they're aggregating all this data, and it's to a large degree rather useless in the format that it's coming in, because different vendors use different labels and whatnot for the data.
Mario, what are your thoughts on the brilliant 2-year-old that we call AI?
I think that's spot on. It's really, you have to spoon feed it every little thing, but then, if you do that, the information that comes out, it's actually pretty crazy.
Right.
But you have to train yourself to know how to train your AI.
You do,
That's the hardest part.
Sometimes I'm shocked at there's so many brilliant things that can come out of AI. I'm shocked at some of the stupid, simple stuff it can't do.
Right.
I mean, figure out what day it is. For God's sake, my AI cannot keep track of what day it is. Today, for example, it knows it's July 1st, but it thinks it's Monday. And, we're sitting here on a Tuesday recording this, and it's like telling me, hey, happy Monday. I'm like,
My favorite was when we were at a conference, they asked the audience to search or to use AI to generate a random number, and everybody's answer was exactly the same. 17.
Really?
Yeah. Just generate a random number between 0 and 50, and everybody except for one person who used a different AI got 17 as the answer.
Not very random then, is it, by definition?
I want to do a live test. Guys, go. Hit your keyboards. I'm actually doing this. You guys talk. I'm doing this.
My wife and I...
Well, you need to compare it to what everybody else is
I've just seen if it comes back at 17.
Yeah,
47. It's got a 7 in it.
Random number.
Chat GPT?
Yep. Go fast,
0
fast,
and 50?
fast. I didn't say that. I just said generate a random number. And
do random number between 0 and 50.
Oh.
I'll do between 0 and 50. I'm using Gemini here. It's thinking really hard about it.
Mine's 27.
Mine's 8.
23. No, see, I don't know, Brian. This is working.
Maybe they've improved it.
37.
30. See, we all got different numbers. I will tell you that back from my coding days, my computer science days, generating random numbers is not a thing. A computer cannot generate a truly random number. It has to
No.
take a seed, and then it
it's
has to
still
throw a
like
bunch of math at it.
Yeah,
Right.
it's still like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law, he as a contractor, and he was putting in tile. The instructions were because it was patterned tile, so to make sure to do it randomly, because people want to make things line up and stuff, and he just didn't know how to do that, and finally he went and got a Yahtzee and got 2 dice out of the Yahtzee game and rolled the dice, and he had set up rules so that he knew which pile to take out of based on what the dice rolled. And
I
at
love
times
that.
it go to the same number, and he's like, he was really reluctant to put it in there, but that was part of being random. It turned out looking pretty good, he said, but if
I
he'd have
love
done
that.
it without the dice, he said you would have seen patterns all over.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
My wife and I, she uses Apple with her phone, and I use an Android phone, and so we're always comparing notes. And one of the things that was surprising to me was that Siri could not tell us what time zone we were in as we were traveling, and
Yeah.
partly we were checking because her phone wasn't updating, and I don't know what if the GPS showed her where she was on the road, but for some reason it wasn't updating the time when my time zone just changed. So then I'm like, well, I'm not sure which times, maybe I'm wrong, So what time zone am I in? And Google told me what time zone I was in, and Siri, I don't even remember what it started talking about, how many time zones there were and all the options, and it didn't even answer the question.
Yeah. A really brilliant 2-year-old.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
So-
but Siri is just a like she's not even a like average brilliant.
Oh, let's play. Let's do this, because you know what, Mario? Our most downloaded episode ever of all time. Do you know what it is?
It's the rant between Apple and Windows.
Mac versus PC. Outranks every episode by like double. It's ridiculous. Crazy.
Yeah,
all right.
funny.
So for ratings, let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to. Okay, Tory. So how do you go about standardizing? And we're going to kind of wrap up at this point, but how do you
Sure.
go about standardizing the data before you dump it into AI? How can we tame this beast a little bit?
Yeah. Well, really, probably your best bet is to come up with some sort of a canonical schema and use a data warehouse for doing that. So, in other words, you take the raw data and then you use an operational data feed to bring that into some form of data lake, data warehouse of some sort, and have it transformed into a standardized schema. That's the most common way of doing that. There are some systems and some vendors and stuff like that will allow you to configure, so if you're bringing things online, you can start with something with a standardized schema that you want to, canonical schema that you actually want to use, and you can configure all your sensors and whatnot, your IoT devices, to provide data in the format that you want it in, and that'll get you closer. But bottom line is you're going to end up needing to put it in a data warehouse, data lake, or some form of aggregated data collection system.
And honestly, that sounds way more technical than it actually is. It's not that hard. Big of a deal to do this. You set it up once and you're good.
Exactly.
Versus taking all that disparate data from different systems and throwing it at AI, and you're just going to have nonstop problems with it.
But see, companies, they want to come and bring in a solution and say, okay, look at my data, and give me this wonderful information about my data and help me detect patterns and things like that of this historical data. And they just get pissed off about, okay, you're not going to be able to do that. Let's take all of these different sources and let's standardize on this. Let's go, to a canonical schema and let's put it in, and they're like, why do we have to do all that? AI should do all of that. Well, we can use tools to help you get there, but you really need to get there.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
All right, guys. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Have we missed anything regarding security /AI/data? Bryan, Mario, any final thoughts before we go to wrap up here?
We didn't talk about compliance.
Let's talk about compliance. That's my favorite subject.
Yeah. So Tory, like, with these companies that you can go into, I know you mentioned you're helping somebody with an audit before. What about compliance? Like, how does that work when somebody needs to be compliant? I'm just going to say CMMC, but they're using like a Windows, XP computer to print blueprints or something like that. How does that usually work?
Yeah, so usually I bring in guys like you because I'm a rule breaker. Compliance is not my thing. It just
See, I was just going to say, put it on the poem and just keep punting it down the line every time you do an assessment.
But yeah, actually though, sometimes that really gives you a lot more authority to work with. Because as a consultant, you guys know this. Yeah, consultants have absolutely zero authority,
Correct.
right? And so the only thing you can get to happen is what you can convince the customer to do.
100%.
Well, if there's some weight behind it because of compliance, now your job is just to show what's out of compliance and provide a means of bringing it back within compliance. So it's helpful in that way. And I've not really been that involved in much from a compliance perspective, to just truthfully. So I haven't had to fight that battle.
Got it. Yeah, trust me, it's not a battle you want to go into. It's a pain.
None of you guys are my friends anymore.
In a pharmaceutical system that sorted pills, and that was. And that was pre Y2K, and you guys probably remember Y2K was a big deal, and we got brought in to fix that system because if you wanted to print out a report of everything, the final date was 12/31/1999. You'd put in the field. That's what the developer put in there to mean forever, which of course wasn't forever. But anyway, we have a few tweaks like that, and there were some compliance issues that we had to fix, but they just told us what it was. And what we brought it back up into compliance, but I haven't really been involved in anything else other than that.
I mean, you nailed it. It does lend authority where, otherwise we may not have it, because this industry on its own is completely unregulated. Yeah. So we can go out and say, hey, customer, you need to spend this much money on this, and here's why. And they can just look at us and say no. And what do we say? Well, you really should, because I said, but when you can say, listen, it's a CIS 8, on this, whatever, when you can cite the source of, this is something that has been vetted by either industry or by peer or by government, at least it's something more than just my wild idea that I'm just trying to rob you blind and make more money.
Yeah. Well, and you can always play the insurance card too, right? I mean, true. Yeah, if you're not compliant, your insurance might, tell you that you screwed up, and if you're compliant, then your insurance, and even if you're not in a compliant industry where compliance is a thing, if you can say, hey, these are best practices and they're defined in these definitions and in these standards, and if
they're defined, and I'm glad you said that. Yeah. But they're not defined. You can hit Google and you can say, hey, what are the best practices? And everybody's got a blog post out there saying what they are. Exactly. But you ask any cybersecurity, self-proclaimed cybersecurity expert who's out there selling this type of service, MSPs, and I'm not talking like in the compliance world, but just generalists, MSP generalists, ask them what best practices are. You'll get 100 different answers if you get an answer at all.
Right.
Well, Justin, can't you get that from your RMM tool?
Exactly. So Tory, we've got kind of a running joke because I pulled this thing off of Reddit where an MSP business owner, been in the industry for more than 2 decades, had a prospect ask him, what are these best practices that you're applying? So this guy just goes to Reddit and he's like, here's what happened. And I'm like, I don't even know. But when I got done laughing, I thought, I guess I should probably figure out what they are. So I went to my RMM to find out. Now, Tory, do you know what an RMM is?
I don't know what an RMM is.
Mario, what's an RMM?
It's a remote management tool where, IT people use to remote into another computer.
Yeah, we remote in, we give it commands, we set up policy. Right. It doesn't tell us what the standards are. I'll tell you that. You tell it, maybe kind of. This guy was a nitwit, and he's out selling this service. So that's the problem, which is why I do rely heavily on standards, on published frameworks.
Yeah, and then
policy on
every
this.
standard, if they've got any significant vendors involved in it, they've got a lot of exceptions and ways to get around them, right? But at least
Right.
there is some framework there
It's
for
something. It's
what
not
we
the
can all agree on
right.
anyway.
Right. It's not the ultimate answer. I will be honest, and let's maybe wrap with this, but when you have somebody internal to the company who's as invested as that guy or gal that you mentioned who had that perfect plan,
Yeah,
and it wasn't incident response, that was a business continuity, right? I believe
business
is how they
continuity.
had
Yeah.
it labeled. God damn, if you do that, you're so far ahead of the rest of the world. My hat's off to that all day long. So, guys, with that, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Tory, you said victoriafied.com is the website of your company. Is that
That's
correct?
where you can find me. Yeah, absolutely. And there will be information about the book as it's coming out on that as well. I also have torybjorklund.com. So
And that's
Good luck.
BJORKLUND for those who
yeah,
don't know how to.
BJORKLUND. And actually, I had that for years, and I shut it down quite a while ago, and I just fired it back up last night. So hopefully, all
nice.
the DNS records have propagated throughout the world. So,
All right,
but victoriafied.com is where you'll
fact check Tory while we finish wrapping this up. Okay, so victoriafied or torybjorklund.com. And it sounds like anybody that's doing, like some major upgrades, major transformations within their company, especially factories, really need a guy like you fighting for them.
Yeah,
So
in ERP systems, we do a ton of ERP stuff and manufacturing execution systems as well.
Yeah.
So,
and I really recommend for everybody use specialists as much as you can. So, MSPs, I'm just going to kind of rat on us as an industry. We do a lot of things, and I would say we do a lot of things well, but when you really need something major, when you're talking about these transformations failing 70% of the time or 95% of the time, depending on how you measure it, man, bring in the big guns. At a minimum, buy your book, right? And then self-implement. I'm sure you can do it yourself. I'm sure you can.
yeah, I should have named it Digital Transformation, DIY Digital Transformation.
Yeah. Or for dummies. Do it for dummies series.
Yeah, for dummies.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, guys. Check Tory out, hire him, use his services, and let's get that batting average up just a little bit, shall we? For the rest of you, go to unhacked.live. That's where we have all of our episodes, our transcripts, our recordings, our social media links, and all that stuff. And you can find profiles for all of us. Also, though, while you're listening on Spotify and stuff, victoriafied.com will be linked right there in the show notes. You can go while you're listening, hit the link and go to Tory's website. So that's what I've got. Guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up for this week. Let's say our goodbyes. Bryan.
Right, well, as I usually say, thank you for having me, and start your cybersecurity journey today. Improve a little bit every day, and let B4 Networks be your guide.
Love it. Mario.
And like I say week in and week out, if you're a business owner and you're staying up at night, let us help you fix your situation so you can sleep better at night.
All right, Tory, final sign off.
Hey, thanks so much, guys, for having me on your show here on your podcast. And it was great meeting you. And I had a blast. And let's make change positive.
I love that. Thank you for being here, Tory, Bryan, Mario, as always. Thanks, guys. Really do appreciate it. I'm Justin Shelley. Remember, listen in, take action, and keep your businesses unhacked. See you next week.
Bye, guys.